r/ask Reddit. What was your biggest I need to get the duck out of here moment? Lived with a good friend for a while years ago. I was around 5 months clean from meth when I started living there, so just barely sober in my eyes. Knew I could still cave at any given moment. Friend gets this new boyfriend and he's alright. She, her boyfriend, me, and a bunch of other people party together regularly while I'm living there. No big deal. But something is weird about the boyfriend. I don't trust him. I can feel that he's hiding something. One afternoon she's downstairs and I go into her room to borrow makeup and walk in on her boyfriend blow drying his meth pipe after cleaning it. Turned around, went to my room, pulled out every bag I had, and packed all my shit up. I was in my car looking for a place to go within the hour. Still pretty proud of myself for that one, I'll admit. Never did touch the shit again. I am 4 months clean off meth right now and this gives me courage and resolve. Hopefully I can make good decisions soon. Thank you. I was eating at an Italian restaurant in Trolley Square Mall when a guy entered the mall and began shooting people. Waitresses told us that there was an exit out the kitchen so we all booked it out the back. From the look on the cooks' faces when a restaurant's worth of people stormed their kitchen, all I could imagine them thinking was, gee, our cooking can't be that bad. Good on the waitresses. Probably when I met these really cute girls at a bar in some beach town I wasn't familiar with, and they invited me home with them. Duck yeah, I'm getting laid. Fast forward 45 minutes. They're shooting heroin and asking me if I wanted any. I respectfully declined and noped the duck out of there. Cape Cod is a hell of a place. I remember one time when I was about 8 years old, I was in the car with my parents. They were arguing, which they did a lot, but being trapped in that metal box with both of them screaming back and forth became too much. We stopped at a red light and I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out of the car and started running. My mom, who was in the passenger seat, ran out after me, and after he pulled over the car my dad did as well. They caught up to me and their attitudes completely changed. They promised they wouldn't fight again, a promise they broke time and time again until their divorce. But they never did it again in the car. Duck. I'd be disappointed if my marriage ever came to that, especially in front of my kid. At least they realized it wouldn't work and that's better than dragging it out. For your sake, was it at least bearable? Met a guy online when I was 22ish. He was 35. He flew out to see me twice. Things were cool. Started long distance dating. He was weird, intense, but super sweet and seemed harmless. After maybe a month I flew out to Utah from the East Coast to spend a week with him during my summer break. Long story short, that time made me realize that some of his quirks were a little more unsettling than I initially realized, and I was no longer feeling the whole thing. I was basically just counting the days till my flight home. Well, one day I pissed him off and he flipped, like total over the top reaction to the situation. Completely exposed his instability. I didn't feel safe at that point, so I grabbed my phone and went outside. I was at a point in my life when I would have done just about anything before asking my parents for help. But I'm not ashamed to say I called them up, bawling my eyes out in the parking lot of his apartment, and asked what the duck to do. I had 2 days left before my flight, couldn't afford to change my ticket, was halfway across the country from home, and was fully convinced I was gonna be a statistic if I stayed with him there. His personality had done a 180. It was scary as duck. After the necessary lecture, my dad booked me a hotel room by the airport until MH return trip, called a local taxi service to come get me, and didn't give me too much shit for the whole thing when I got home. In retrospect, I don't think he would have actually hurt me, but the sudden realization of how completely vulnerable I was terrifying. Went to my neighbor's house to play with their daughter. We were both about 5 years old. While there, her older brother, 11-12 years old, takes off his pants and says I should touch him, that he gets his sister to all the time, and that it's okay and natural. I was confused and didn't know what was happening, so I immediately ran home. I avoided the brother thereafter. It's only looking back as an adult that I understand what was happening and how lucky I was to leave. I had a cousin like this. He kept asking my sister and me to show him our breasts and butts. We were 5 and he was 10. He called it the booby theater. When he was 12 he escalated to trying to get us to play spaceship and claimed he was a safety couch and that we had to lie down on him. We said no to that one and thereafter avoided being alone with him. But I don't think we ever told on him. I think we thought we would get in trouble. By an age when my parents explained to us about adults trying to touch us and how it wasn't okay even if it was family, we had mostly forgotten about it. They made us leave doors open if boys were over after we were I want to say 11 or so, though, so that kept horny cousin from doing anything else. He's married now. When I was 13 I, stupidly, followed my friend down to one of her friend's houses. Her friend was 23, we weren't far apart, and we all had kind of known each other for a while, but never hung out alone. We were both girls, going alone, without permission, so I knew this idea was stupid, but I was told to watch her and make sure she was okay, so I felt it was my responsibility to go with her. We hung out with her friend and his two friends, one in his 20s and one in his 30s. She asked them for some beer, and of course they gave it to her, but I noticed they were being pushy, trying to get her to drink more and trying to touch her. They offered me some, but I declined. She was completely ignorant to what they were trying to do. I ended up making a dumb excuse, hey let's go back to my house to get our jackets. We'll be right back. And they reluctantly let us leave. I told her she was an idiot, and once I showed her the signs she was a bit freaked. As we were walking through town we noticed someone a few blocks back. They followed us. Every time we would look back we would see them sprint for a second and then hide behind something. My friend was losing her shit thinking we were gonna die or be raped because they kept getting closer every time we would glance in their direction. We spent about an hour evading them. Thankfully her dad got angry and found us in town. He pulled up the car and she was crying so hard that she couldn't speak. She just took off towards his car, jumped in and screamed drive. He looked confused, but I had no time and waved him off. Stupid moment number 2. And she left with him. Her dad later said he thought she was seriously hurt, so he sped towards the air. He didn't even think I was in trouble. I took off on a mad dash for home, losing the creeps in the process. My grandma found 2 of them under our outdoor stairs. This was after I lost them as I was walking home. They had ran ahead of me and beat me to my house since they knew where I lived. They thought we were still walking home, so they were waiting for us. How'd she find them? She overheard one say to the other, we'll wait until they come home and duck the lights out of them. Well, they didn't realize my grandma was home, and she came outside and scared them off. She was really confused until I came home and explained what had happened. I was on a 3rd date with this guy. During the night he was obviously trying to get me drunk. He was 100% sober, forgot my name, and kept trying to kiss me without my permission. I tried to play it cool and let him walk me to the subway station, but he got me in a compromised area and started messing with me. I knocked him over and ran like crazy. Now guys sometimes get offended when I get pushy about boundaries on dates, but I'm not risking it. That sounds terrifying. I'm glad you got out of that okay. Relaying a story a girl told me when we were in our late 20s. I started shaking just listening to this unfold. When she was 10, she was down the street outside of her house playing alone. A man in a car pulls up and after a little small talk, asks if she'd like to go with him to get ice cream. She gets in the car and he drives off. They drive around for what seems like 15 minutes and the area starts to get less and less populated. She asks where they are going and says she's getting scared. For whatever reason that is good and holy in the universe, the man suddenly starts crying and makes a U-turn and hightails it back to her street. He's begging her not to tell anyone and that he's really sorry. At this point she is really scared and knows she made a big mistake. They get to her street and she jumps out of the car and starts running home while he's still trying to get her to promise. He peels out and gets away as quickly as possible. It didn't hit her how stupid that was and how lucky she was until years later. When she was telling me this I was shaking from the thoughts of what this guy was likely thinking of doing up until the moments he couldn't go through with it. Damn, that is terrifying. Really glad he couldn't go through with it though. I hope he got help and didn't end up hurting anyone else. 1999 on call as a paramedic. I ran a call where a middle-aged man had called for us to transport him to a mental health facility. The guy was depressed and handed me a suicide note to read that said, his name, would like to apologize for killing these 2 EMTs found here with me. I know these 2 and myself will be in a better place. I stopped reading the letter and told him I had forgot my glasses and couldn't read the letter. I told him that I needed to run back to my ambulance and get them. My partner was standing at the door as I walked by, motioning him to follow me ASAP. As we walked out and radioed for assistance, we heard a gunshot, and when the police arrived, we found the guy dead of a singe gunshot wound to the chest. The guy was going to kill us and then himself. The suicide note was 2 pages long. Had I not stopped and falsely walked out to get my glasses that I didn't have, my partner and I would probably not be here today. My partner gave up EMS 3 days later after 7 years in the business. January 2017 marked my 30th year as a paramedic. My colleagues, as a joke, nicknamed me Genius after the event, and it stuck. They should have named me Lucky Sob. Had a big hornet nest in the outer wall of our garden shed once. We had a party coming up there on the next weekend, so my granddad decided to get rid of them somehow. I don't know why, but he took me on for the ride. When we got there, the place was swarming with hornets, and I'm talking those big ass huge brightly colored ones. So his plan was to get a long tree branch, wrap some cloth around the end, drench it with gasoline, light it up and shove it into the wall. Not only was that a terrible idea because the wall was made of wood, but also because those hornets apparently hated to get burned alive. I was standing back defending myself from burning flying ducks with a wooden plank, trying to hit the undead army of hornets with what was basically a wooden stick. Half-burned hornets proceeded to attack us, even without wings, crawling angrily towards us on the floor. Shit got real messy when I tried to defend against both flying and crawling ones. Eventually the never-stopping mass of pissed-off hornets got to me. Finally I noped out running away amongst the apple trees and got stung multiple times because they were chasing me. I'm still pretty terrified of those things, and my girlfriend has to handle them if one finds its way into our flat. Too long didn't read fought army of burning hornets and nope the duck out of there. Every family function, it always seems like a good idea at first. Free food. But then I get there and the food sucks and everyone is awful and I end up regretting going. When I was alone in a room with Chuck Berry and he informed me he was going to have sex with me, I was young and stupid. This was 1983. But I noped the hell out of there and got a cab home. Later, when news came out about him having Polaroid pics of all sorts of naked girls, my mom called me in a panic asking if any of them were me. Nope, I said. My clothes were always on and he was weird as hell. When the very old crackhead buying us underage kids booze started pulling out swords, knives, homemade weapons, got mad and said nobody was allowed to leave until we all came inside to see them all. I was in an abandoned building with a friend. She walked away from me for a bit. I was reading writing on a wall that said something like, "You thought I was dead. I got away. I'm coming back for you." A few seconds later she ran back to me. I looked at her and she said it was nothing. Then we both heard a noise from where she came from. I said we need to get out of here. We start running out. A second later we hear a grown-ass person sprinting towards us. Ran for our lives. Got out. Never saw the person. Was in Phoenix on vacation and went out with my cousin. She takes me to a party on the 3rd floor of an apartment. Probably 30 people. Some girl shows up and there is some drama with some other guys not at the party. They say they're coming over to the party and there is going to be a fight. 2 of the guys at the party go to their cars, grab guns and an ammo case full of ammo. There's only one way out of this apartment and I'm not going to be there if this goes down. Look at my cousin. I don't know any of these mother duckers and I'm heading home tomorrow. Can we get the duck out of here? Just the question made me LOL. Landed in Kuwait for work and I'm in the line for a visa when the little kid sneezed next to me. While I'm in autopilot mode after a long flight, I said bless you. It was at that exact moment I wanted to leave, and in many moments after that moment, I was interrogated by Kuwaiti police and had all my belongings searched, just to make sure I wasn't in the country to spread Jesus literature. Wasn't sure if I would ever make it home. Glad I did. Never went back. sleeping at my fire hall. I'm volunteer firefighter because flooding had cut me off from the only road back to my house. Got woken up at 3:30 am by the night shift crews who were keeping watch on the flood waters. The river was still rising and was within 6 inches of breaching the berm and would obliterate town if it did. We got out of Dodge, having already evacuated the residents the night before. The river left 2.5 inches of berm intact and started to recede by daybreak. So one night my brother's friend comes into town for some college math team thing, and he calls me up to see if I can hang out with him. And I say sure, cause I've always felt bad for this kid. His dad is really ducked up and is mentally abusive to everyone in the house. No one in the house is normal. The mother just worships the husband and she's ducked up on pain pills most of the time. It's just bad. And the kid is a little off because of it. So as a result I feel bad and agree to hang out with him. So I pick him up and we have some beers and just hang out. And then after he gets a little drunk and serious, he tells me he's got something to tell me he's never told anyone. And because I've had more than a few gay lesbian friends, I'm in my head and I'm just expecting him to be like, I think I might be gay. No biggie, right? Wrong. Dude proceeds to tell me that one night his dad kicked the family dog, which is very cruel, and that he feels horrible for the dog because the dog loves him unconditionally. So he tells me he decided to jerk the dog off to make it feel better. Then he told me he was thinking about blowing the dog. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.